Dr. Mark Goulston is currently an advisory board member at Tanto Capital Partners. He's also a best-selling author of many books, including Talking to Crazy, How to Deal with Irrational Impossible People in Your Life, Get Out of Your Own Way, Overcoming Self-Defeating Behavior, and a book that he and I have spoken about in the past, Just Listen. Discover the secret of getting through to absolutely anyone. Mark, good to see you again. I hope you're holding up okay.
I'm holding up. I hope you are too, David.
Absolutely. Let's just jump in here, and I hope you don't mind. Let's go down this listening path a little bit here. So much of what's happening right now, business, personal conversations, social conversations, they're taking place through the screen. There's all this intermediation with the screen happening. How is all this virtualization making listening more difficult?
Well, I think it's become exhausting. I think to be a little bit humorous, when you're on a Zoom call and people have their video on, you get a sense if they're distracted. You get a sense if they're giving you their undivided attention,
Mm-hmm.
if they're looking away, if they're texting. And you also know that the people who don't have their video on, who just have their name, it's probably because they're multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
Tasking. I mean, they're not listening to you, but it is kind of exhausting because it sort of demands us to sort of stay focused on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I'm aware of is you can have the gallery view or the speaker view,
Mm-hmm.
and when you have the gallery view, it looks like Hollywood squares,
Or the Brady Bunch.
the Brady Bunch, and for a nanosecond you say, "Oh, it's like the Brady Bunch." Then after that, it's exhausting, and so I think they're now preferring where the speaker gets the full video.
Mm-hmm.
So at least that's different than looking at all those little squares.
Sure.
Also, I think in the chat room, that can also be distracting. And in the chat room, it can be filled with all kinds of good intentioned things like, oh, here's a good link. Here's something I'm trying. Oh, I found out about this.
Sure.
And so that can be exhausting also. And it's a challenge to our listening. And I think what happens is there's many people who have Zoom fatigue.
Yes. Yes. Can you give any advice, maybe one or two quick tips here for people who are looking to become better listeners?
Well, as you know, Dave, I wrote Just Listen, which did very well. And last October, I spoke in Moscow along with a Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman. He wrote Thinking Fast and
Yep.
Slow.
Awesome book.
Oh, great book. And I introduced my latest work on listening. And what I'm about to say will change your life if you agree with it. If I focus on what you're listening to, if I focus on what Dave's listening to, and I give him some interesting bullets, he'll write them down and we'll have a transactional conversation, business as usual. But what I introduced in Moscow to 1,000 Russians, I said, but if I focus on what you're listening for, and I get it right, and I deliver on that, you'll give me everything. And then I'll just give you an example. I said to the Russian audience, and it's available on YouTube. You can find Goulston, you can find it. And I said, let me see if I get what you're listening for. And I used my NPR voice. And I said, if you're managers and CEOs, what you're listening for is you're judged by your measurable results. It's not even performance. You got to get measurable results. And if they're good, you'll get a promotion or a raise. And if they're bad, you go the other direction. Is that true? And they went, "Da." And I said, and what you're also listening for is a way to get those results that's less stressful, because the way you're doing it now, you're drinking too much, you're eating too much, your people are doing that. It's a real mess. Is that true? And they go, "Oh, da." And I said, and here's the third thing that you're most listening to. What you're listening for is, if I could give you a tactic that is doable by you immediately to start getting those results, and you don't have to buy a course, you don't have to buy a book. I haven't written the book on this yet. If I can give you something that you can use right now and you can do it, you don't have to be a psychologist, you don't even have to like thinking, but if it gets you better results with less stress, would today be worth the money you paid and the time you reserved for it? And they go, "Oh, da." And so what I'm focused on, and I'm going to do it right now with Dave, what Dave is listening for is Mark, I'm creating this V blog,
Mhm.
video blog, and what I'm listening for is something that the people who watch this can get immediate value from.
Mhm.
And I'm like that Russian audience. If you can give them something where they get immediate value that they use and it changes their life for the better, and it doesn't take too much brain damage, that's a home run, Mark. That's what I'm listening for. Is that true?
That's exactly true. And just to wrap up here, thank you so much. Just to wrap up here, I'm going to ask you kind of the thematic question I ask everybody who is kind enough to appear on my program. Mark, what lessons are we learning right now, or have we learned during this crisis that we must not forget?
Well, I think the lesson we're learning is that when people are overwhelmed, it's less important what you tell them than what you enable them to tell you that gets things off their chest so that they feel cared about in their overwhelm.
That's
And so
fantastic.
you enable them to tell you that relieves them of that, they're going to lean into you and you're going to build a friend for life.
That's fantastic. Mark, I know you're a busy guy. Thank you so much for checking in with me.
Well, thanks for listening, Dave.
Have a good rest of the day.